Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Green Factor, where we talk about green design and the business of sustainability. I'm your host, Haris the Green Carpenter, and today with me we have Mr. Adrian Lafage from Decathlon Malaysia. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Harriet. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Adrian, I've been looking at his LinkedIn and all that few weeks ago, and I feel that you have much to contribute to the audience, especially in the field of sustainability, because you also do podcasts, right? And
Yes, exactly.
a bit later, I think we'll go into that. But I think right now, for the benefit of the audience, I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit and your journey and how sustainability is very important to you.
Okay. Like I said, thank you for having me. It's a great exercise for me to move on the other side of the dark forest for once. Hi, everyone. My name is Adrian. I'm actually from France, but I moved to Malaysia about 6 years ago, and I am now working for Decathlon Malaysia as their sustainability leader. Just to give you a little bit of background about my life and to know how I got into sustainability, it actually started at a very young age for me because I was born in a farmer's family. So we were from the, I would say, lower middle class in France. My grandparents were Italian, and I basically grew up in a farm with my family. So very close to the soil, I would say. And yeah, I was not really always considering going to study or thinking I was a good student, but I actually managed to have my master's degree at some point into business, and having thoughts of pursuing my career overseas, and trying to do my best to do whatever people did not manage to achieve in my family. So that was my main driver, I would say, along all this while. After that, once I graduated in France, I already had about three internships of 6 months each in Asia at that time in 2014. So I really wanted to come back to live around this area. And then I got my first job in 2015, which was supposed to be in Singapore, but I decided to change it and ask them to move me to Malaysia. And then just to explain a little bit on how I managed to get to this position today, I worked for 6 years in Malaysia for different French companies as a business developer in the region. So I was basically traveling here and there to develop this different kind of businesses as a consultant. And in 2019, I co-founded the social enterprises in Malaysia. And I think this is where everything changed for me. I really loved the entire ecosystem of social entrepreneurship, and that's where I understood basically the difference between a normal entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. And so I started reading more about sustainability and understand what it means and how important it is for the future of our planet, and how we can play our part not just as a citizen but also as, I would say, a corporate or as a governmental body, or as a different entity basically. So yeah, that's about me. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And why is sustainability important to your current organization right now?
Okay, so basically, like I said earlier, I work for Decathlon. Decathlon Malaysia is a sports retailer from France, obviously, and we have this commitment based from the Paris Agreement that we signed in 2015 during the COP21 in Paris. And so Decathlon really has to engage as a corporate to work alongside the French government to drive towards this climate change goal to limit the 1.5 degrees Celsius increase towards 2030. So this was our main vision. So inside the Decathlon, we have this 10 years vision that started in 2016 until 2026, to make sure that we come as green as possible by 2026. Now, in Malaysia, since the company has started only in 2016, I just joined the company to help them transition in terms of the environmental impact that we may have to limit our carbon footprint impact as a corporate. especially as a mass production company. I think this is our duty. And yeah, like I mentioned, um, it is one of the main. We have the three P's. We call the three P's in Decathlon, which is people, planet, and profit. And another duty we have is because we're one of the most admired French companies, and so people really look into the actions that we take. And it doesn't mean that just the actions we take in France, but also the actions we take worldwide in the 60 countries where we're located. Yeah.
So, because Decathlon is such a big organization, so there's a lot of people that is involved, a lot of process and all that. So, like for SME or social enterprise, it's very easy to at least navigate around sustainability and processes. But for a big organization, how do you approach sustainability? Where do you start and how?
So basically, the first work I would say as a corporate is to draw a roadmap. It's very important to define your objectives, what you're trying to achieve, and also include your teammates, the different teammates. So let's say for me in Decathlon, I work on 6 main pillars where you have production, where you have transport, where you have eco-mobility, everything related to the products themselves, on how do we source the eco-friendly raw material. So all these aspects to it are very important. Same with the energy and the green building certifications. So you have to involve the teammates because they know their job, and it's you kind of come as a consultant within the company. You do an assessment, and with the roadmap that you define and the KPIs you defined with each leader, I would say in the company, then you will have your upcoming plan. And then after that, it's about how do you implement this within the. Sometimes it comes by partnering up with NGOs or with local social entrepreneurships, or sometimes you already have existing resources inside your corporation.
Cool. So yeah, I do agree. Like the planning is one of the roadmap, right? It's one of the important. Like for example, in Malaysia, how many staff do you guys have?
So in Malaysia today, we're about 600 plus staff, but we are developing quite fast. We are opening actually our 7th store in December in my town, in Cheras. But by the end of next year, we plan to have about 12 stores just in KL, and then perhaps go outside of KL after that, and go above 1,000 employees by next year. So when you think that we just opened the company in 2016, it's a great achievement for us. So yeah, I believe that the more we grow and the more we take sustainability at the roots, the more people will grow their mindset, a sustainable mindset within the company. Another thing I may add to that is that it's not just within the company, but it's overall efforts. When I said overall, I'm talking about government actions that may facilitate. For example, one of our suppliers recently got a grant to install solar panels on the rooftop, and the grant was about financing 48% of their investment. So it comes directly from the government. Another one is as well to educate our customers also to, for example, when they come to the stores or when they purchase something with plastic or whatever it may be, like we have to educate, and it's a duty also as a company to educate the customers into their to have a more sustainable behavior, I would say.
Because I feel like what companies or like people who want to look into sustainability, the problem is okay, the management or the leader wants to do it, but when it comes trickling down, there's a lot of this teething issue that is very difficult to get around with. Like for example, like when my time we started our green journey, I think 9 years ago. But because everything is it requires a new mindset or a different approach, so the employees might not be at the same page because it gives them a little bit more work. So like how do you, like in your case there's like hundreds of people that is involved, so how do you get like not just the employees but even the consumer? Sometimes it's a bit difficult for them because, for example, no plastic. So how are they going to bring the products out and those kind of things? So how do you get those stakeholders to be with this your mission?
So first, I would say the first thing, you need to divide the internal stakeholders to the external stakeholders. It's very important. So internal, we're talking about employees, we're talking about the leaders for the management perhaps, and also the owners, shareholders. So you have all these people internally that need to set an example, right? So for them, you need to engage them in believe in your vision. And that's, I would say it's a little bit like a CEO would do. So you have to come up with a vision that suits your personality and at the same time, is clear enough for everyone to understand, but gives them some flexibility on adapting it to their to each one of them's departments. It's very important. Another thing is, if you want to engage them, it means you need to understand them. So to do some sort of assessment and to understand in each department, how does it work? How do people think in finance? What is sustainable finance? If you talk about production, what is raw material? How can I source a more eco-friendly raw material? What kind of processes these people use? So you really need to have a full understanding of what people do and engage them into your vision. Now, if you talk about external stakeholders, talking about suppliers, for example, customers, government, or any kind of partners, like I mentioned earlier. For them, it's more about, they may already have some existing processes, sustainable processes, and it's more about finding how do you integrate both visions into one to merge and to have a bigger impact, basically. So it's a slightly different work that you have to do, but this understanding part is, to me, very important. And to make sure that you're both running the same races, even though sometimes it's not the same pace, you may have to make sure that you're at least on the same track.
Yeah, so it's all about the finding win-win solution, right? It's not that
Yes,
one, for example, the business only gets the win, but the supplier doesn't. It incur more
of
cost
course.
to them, and so it doesn't work. So like even like in term of us, after doing it for a while, we created a framework where we study all the process that is involved in the
Mm,
operation, as well as the stakeholder that's involved. So we look at our the not just the material, the glue that we use, the coating that we use, the packaging, the
mm,
process, and also the people that is involved, the makers, the
yeah,
community members, the government, and make sure that they understand, and like you say, they need to see it in their eyes. For example, right now, because my work have moved towards the activism part, especially for businesses to adopt sustainability. For them, it's not about talking about saving the environment or anything. For them, it's like how can sustainability benefit your company in terms of the
mm,
monetary, for example. So this is, I agree with you. You have to talk their language or what they care about, and I feel like a lot of people struggle there because
yeah.
I think the CEOs they want it, but they don't understand the limitation and all that. And I'm guessing it's more of a journey, right?
It is a journey, and one of the key that you need to understand, the key, I would say, the key topic would be to be patient. It's you really need to be patient and to care about what you do, which is not easy, because you may have a lot of companies that would do that for, like we call it, green bashing or communication purposes. But when you really care, and for me, I believe that I'm not an activist, but I'm more of I used to look up to NGOs back in the days when I was younger for the work they would do. But I always thought that they would have this lack of entrepreneurship. They wouldn't really understand how to generate money and how important it was to generate money to be able to create bigger actions. Or, for example, not to do a one-time off actions like donations, for example. I've never been a big advocate of donations, but more on building programs, long-lasting programs. One more thing is that sustainability is not just towards the environment. Like you may know, if you think about the Sustainable Development Goals set up by the United Nations, they're all interconnected, right? And if you look at them interdependently, they are not extremely connected. But if you think about it, they all strive towards the same goal. Whether you talk about connectivity, whether in rural areas, whether you talk about gender equality or poverty or hunger or refugees, all these things actually at the end of the day come back together. And this is the vision that you need to have, of like every little action you will set up, whether you're an SME like yours, like a small company, or a bigger company, or bigger corporation like us. You may actually drive some little actions here and there that will contribute, generally speaking, towards the same goal. And I think this is the very important thing.
I love when you talk about the sustainability. It's not just saving environment. It's definitely something that we need to talk more on because, like for example, we only like general perception sustainability is saving the environment, but it's
Mhm.
more than that. Saving the environment is the byproduct of sustainability. But if you look at the definition of sustainability, is good for the long run. So when you look into that, there's a lot of other things that is involved in sustainability. Efficiency is sustainability. Mental health is sustainability. Physical health.
Mhm.
Even like for us right now, we are looking into cultural preservation as a sustainable approach,
Mhm.
and I feel like sustainability have this connotation of a certain part, but actually it encompasses a lot of other elements. And this is why I believe that sustainability is not a trend. It's actually something that will preserve in a very long time. And talking about organization, because you also do interview with these social entrepreneurs and
Mhm.
personnel. What which organization you feel currently doing well in terms of holistic sustainable approach?
Well, if you talk about international or national level in Malaysia, that's two different things, right? If you talk about international level, I would like to quote about maybe Schneider Electric because obviously they've been elected this year. They've made a massive jump into their sustainability. So from last year, and obviously they are into 50% reduction of their CO2 emissions. And they also have about 80% of, they aim at 80% of green revenue, which is fantastic. And um, I would say also maybe companies like IKEA or H&M, Uniqlo, who started from far away in terms of fast fashion and all these things, and it's great to see that now they're looking into circular fashion, for example, or IKEA is more like looking into wood and cotton sourcing or more eco-friendly ways of sourcing those raw material. So this is on an international level. Now, if you talk about Malaysia, my understanding of the ecosystem, it's more on the I would say social enterprises ecosystem, where I really see what they try to implement. Whether you talk to about Pizza Eats or companies like well, there is a few different ones that came to my podcast, and I think they are very Harit, Imran Harit, who is also doing the Muay Thai, which is some social work. You, I think they are really paying more and more attention towards contributing to a better environment or a better social empowerment, and like you a bit you do finding corporations to partner up with to have a bigger impact in the ideas they have or the innovative work that they do. So this is to me extremely key to development. Now, if you ask me in terms of corporates in Malaysia, like Decathlon is doing, I would take the same one as I said before. But there is a need to do more, even for in our part. It's not just like do; it's also about we all have to improve what we do, especially when we are doing mass production, or especially when we're using the natural resources in a country that is not ours. We really need to make sure that we invest in the country in a very sustainable way. And people wise, I'm not really worried because we work alongside Malaysian, right? But whenever you talk about factories, whenever you talk about producing here locally, it's great in terms of economy, but you really need to pay attention to the impact you may have on the environmental side.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think like I would want to ask a little bit more about like the types of activity, because in the organization, of course, we have the framework, we have the directives and all that. But during the
Mhm.
implementation, this is where the people level are, because we have various, we have the management, we have the operation, and various levels. So like how do you do what programs internally that you do that um, you want to do, but then they have problem of implementation, and how do you get around it?
um, you mean like how do we set up programs in the company to make sure that the sustainability is run well?
Yeah.
Well, you have reports. First thing first, like I said, roadmap and reports is very important to see your progress towards the vision. It is, I think, something that you have to focus on at some point. Another thing I may emphasize, and that I'm actually building right now, so it may give some ideas to the other corporates that may listen to us. It's about building the profiles of tomorrow. So I'm looking into building an incubator where we would take inside this incubator some young potential talents, nurture them, and instead of hiring them and be their employer, give them the opportunity to start their own business, a bit like a VC would do or an investor would do, but within the corporation itself. So then we would give them a 5 to 10 years contract, perhaps, and also the flexibility of running their own business where they would have other clients, and we would make them nurture a business which turns around what we do. And I always believed in that since a long time. And to me, this is a huge part of sustainability, and a long-lasting integration. You need to stop thinking about a corporation as a whole, but more on the like, okay, how do I diversify my activities in terms of profiles and in terms of giving the freedom that people want today? Also, I think is very important.
So
So
that
this is
is more like you see it not just inside the corporation, but a little bit outside the community and all that.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
but looking at the inside part, the one that works for you, like for example, the one that is do the stocking of stuff and like taking it out and all that. How do you engage them in a way that they understand that sustainability is important, waste management is important, and all that?
Well, like I mentioned slightly earlier, you need to also spend time with them and see the way they work today to see where is the room for improvement, right? So whether you talk about, I will go back to the production because I think it's very important. I spent quite some time with the production leader in Decathlon to understand the way she works and the tools she uses and the partner she has to just for me to see, okay, she has this sustainable mindset. How can I come into the picture and support the work she does without making her spend too much time with me as well, right? So I need to come in a very efficient way and to drive her and to work together towards the same goal. Now, an example of how do you drive people, maybe through trainings. Trainings is great. Maybe you can, as a corporate, organize every year 2 3 days sustainable development training, where you hold classes to explain what is to sustainable finance, very specific. What is sustainable finance? And then they will understand, okay, how they need to implement in their own finance vision the new behavior of tomorrow. Same thing with every department, right? And it's very complex. The profiles are very different, but that's what we do. The job we do, right? It's because it's not easy, and you really need to have a holistic approach when you talk to all these people. So yeah, I've talked about incubator. I talked about trainings. Maybe another thing you need to do is to make, as these people are also citizens, they're also individuals as one person, right? So it's also about being a sustainable police, like I like to call it. And in the office, when you see someone using plastics or not switching off the lights, which happens to me too sometimes because I'm human, but it's nice to remind to each other to do more efforts towards this. And it starts with us as a person, because we have to think of tomorrow. People have children, and people will leave a legacy behind. And I think it's important that we start as one-on-one explaining why it's important.
So yeah, that is more on the managing down part
Yeah.
of the buy-in. So we also have like companies that is already established. They are not new companies, or maybe the second generation, or it's been business for quite some time. So the initiatives come, or the one comes from the middle management. For example, a manager or general manager, he feels like we should move towards a more sustainable operation, and then but the bosses, the CEO are not seeing it at that point of time. So how do you see them being able to improve that relationship and get the buy-ins from the higher ups?
Okay, I would divide this question in two parts. The first one is, I don't really believe these kind of companies will be lasting for long. The main reason is because if you look into the US, for example, there is most of the investors right now, they are not just looking into how profitable the company is when they want to buy it. They are also looking into the environmental impact of this company, because it's linked to the branding and the image of the company as well, which is extremely important in the times of social media. So they need to really adapt this thinking if they want to have a chance to get funded by investors and all this. Now, if the investors or the C-level guys don't really manage to see that, how do you change their mindset? Well, by taking actions and by showing them why they would need to do so, right? And how your company can contribute into it. Another part is it's in competition. If, let's say, this company has one or two or three competitors, and these guys are already moving into a greener impact on the environment, I mean, I would say, it's a race, so they will have to take on and to find ways to do so. Now there are different ways. Again, I will go back to this to contribute to these sustainable actions. And a lot of companies, unfortunately, are moving towards what we call green bashing, which is they're extremely good in communication, but the groundwork that they do is extremely like on the surface. And this to me it may seem that they're doing something today, but tomorrow the results will come out and the truth will come out, and I don't think anybody will be taking advantage of this. So again, right, sustainability is thinking long term and it's being patient. Companies that are not doing this, it's like profit. If they're not focused towards building a sustainable, profitable company, yeah, there's very few chances that they will be long lasting, right? So
So we have a question from Yifan Joshua. Thank you very much for tuning in. Great insight, Adrian. I'm running a new social enterprise focused on reducing plastic pollution. Would really love to know more about the VC you were talking about.
yeah, so when I mentioned about VC, it's more about the incubator that we're trying to build inside Decathlon right now. So we can get in touch if you want. We're always welcoming new potential profiles if it links sports and sustainability, a little bit like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den would do. If Joshua, you have any potential innovative ideas, feel free to propose that to us and to reach out to me. Now, how do you make yourself different than the other social enterprises there? That's the key, right? And this is why I love social enterprises, because they're really focused on innovation and finding the right thing. Now, if I grab this, you see, even as a corporate, it doesn't stop me from understanding and learning. So I have a book with me right here, which is called Your Plastic Footprint. And I'm really interested to see how I can learn more about the different kind of plastics and how we can transform it, and also reduce the usage we do out of it in our packaging and all this. So yeah, just if you're focused on this kind of mindset, for corporates, not just for the customer, but also as a social enterprise with an added value for corporates, try to really adapt your business model to the corporates that you want to work with. It's important to see the direction, like I mentioned earlier, the direction that this corporate wants to take. So then you can merge into the same thing, and yeah, and then maybe also diversify your business offer at some point, which will be great for you. I can hear you.
Sorry, I just
No
want
problem.
to touch a little bit on this issue as well. Like for businesses, especially social enterprise, we need to stop thinking that people will buy your product because of the cost. Maybe they
Mhm.
will buy one time, but then it's not a sustainable way to operate the business. So we need to have a mindset like social enterprise is actually a business. So you have to work like a business. You need to serve a purpose. You need to solve a problem. It needs to have marketing. It needs to have proper branding and all that. So it's like a typical business. I always say like normal business, they have to think about maybe 10,000 things, but social entrepreneurs, we need to think about like 20,000 things. So it's not as simple as just having the cost, right?
I agree with you 100%. And I will just illustrate what you just said, because before moving to corporates, I also had I co-founded a social enterprise, which was called Dreamer, with someone else back 2.5 years ago. And so before being a corporate, I really understand the struggle that it may be to be a social entrepreneur, right? It's not just about generating profits, it's also about getting started, right? So you have the pleasures of I would say work hard towards the idea you have and building the ideas, but then to make people believe, whether it's potential partners or corporates that you want to work with, or to get a grant from the government, to make people believe in this idea and invest in you, it's another thing, right? And you need to have really strong nerves, and keep on going. If I may share with you, you have to keep on going. It's tough. It may take time, but at some point it will come your way. Once you get the first corporate to trust in your project, the second one will come a little bit faster, and the third one will come, and then you will diversify your business, perhaps change direction also at some point. So this is the beauty of it. And then at some point, you might not just be like a small social enterprise, but a big one. I'm thinking of, for example, Masala Wheels, or I'm thinking of big corporations like that really put all their efforts at the beginning to grow an idea they had, and make a real business out of it at some point, where corporates reach out to you to work with you.
Cool. I think one last question before we finish the show. I wanted to know more about like what are the current innovation in the sustainable space that we should look into as well. Just to give you an example, right now in terms of our processes, we have problem in terms of the packaging side. We don't have the cling film that is a sustainable option to protect our material. But these are some of the solutions that I feel like the industry is also having problem in terms of solving. But that is just one example. Is there anything else that you feel innovation that is coming up right now that is interesting to look into?
Well, there are a few, I would say, because, for example, in Decathlon, we're doing what we call eco-design products, which are like making sure that the products from day one until the day it ends up with the customer will be completely eco-friendly. So we're trying to set up, but this is more like an entire chain, supply chain, or manufacturing side. Now, if you talk about tools, it's true that we have a lack of it, lack of tools, or lack of leadership from some people. Even if you look into the recent COP26, it's always more about what they're going to do instead of what they've done, right? And this is why it can be a bit frustrating to see that, it comes back to politics. So now, if you talk about products innovation, there are a lot in the market. You just have to look into it. If you talk about H&M, for example, they have now set up all these recycle clothes, right? So where you can step inside the store and drop off like your old clothes, so they will recycle them. So it's very important to understand. You have also secondhand platforms like Carousel or like Muda, right, in Malaysia, where instead of buying everything new all the time, you can just purchase something which was used before. It doesn't mean it's not as good. It just means that you extend the life of a product, and then you become part of the recycling chain. You can also go to IPC Mall to recycle. They have this recycling wall, which I'm basically also working on right now, to do something similar at Decathlon, which would be great, to give the opportunity to the customers and also to our teammates to recycle, and to do good for the society. So there are things out there that you may be able to look at. Reach out to me or to Harit. I guess you also know some, right? If ever you guys want to know specifically in your ecosystem how to change this and what kind of tools you may be able to use as an innovation.
Thank you very much for that. Joshua also said thank you for the tips, Adrian.
All right, glad to connect.
So I think this is what the show is about as well. We want to create more conversation. We want to talk more to local champions or people that actually is doing something. We need to reduce more on the talking side. We need to focus more on the doing side. And I think like we need to be part of the solution, be part of the conversation. And this is also as well a part of the show. We have a community in Facebook called Green Design Malaysia, where right now we have around 1,300 members, consists of business people, designers, students, and researchers, where we talk to each other. Because the thing is, it needs a lot of people to solve issues. Like for example, right now I have a lot of people who ask me about what can we do with face masks. I I answer that it's not my territory yet, but these are some of the questions we need to ask and discuss. Maybe like two, three people cannot have the answer, but if you have like 50 or 100 people talking about it, probably one or two can be used. And this is why community is very strong, and this is why I feel like we need to have more conversation. And for thank you very much, Adrian, for spending your time and sharing your stories. For everyone that is tuning in, if you find value in the show, do share it with your friends, our family that might need the information. And for everyone else, have a great green week ahead, and see you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.